A quote from former Vice President and environmentalist Al Gore. We are facing a planetary emergency which, if not solved, would exceed anything we've ever experienced in the history of humankind. Hello, my name is Yaneli Rosario, and today I will be speaking about fast fashion, the fishing industry, and how the methods used in these industries affect climate change. I believe that it is crucial to speak about these topics because we are living on a planet which we are making more uninhabitable day by day. I personally became interested back in middle school when I first watched Al Gore's documentary called An Inconvenient Truth. It blew my mind how we've had extensive research proving climate change for so long, yet people were still in denial. As a quick preview, I will be describing exactly what these processes are that influence climate change. An article published this year called Fast Fashion Has to Slow Down for the Climate. It states that a 2021 report from the World Economic Forum identified fashion as one of the world's largest polluters after food and construction, releasing about 5% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. Looking at the supply chain of fast fashion, aka the steps it takes for our clothes to get to us, allows us to see exactly how each sector is reliant on fossil fuels. The fibers used to make our clothes are the most responsible for these fossil fuel emissions. About 2/3 of the carbon footprint of clothes making comes from the production of synthetic fibers such as nylon and polyester, which are made using non-renewable resources. In fact, about 340 million barrels of crude oil are used each year in order to produce these synthetic fibers. Of course, one would think an alternative for using cheaper and widely available synthetic fibers would be cotton, but cotton is actually also unfriendly to the environment sometimes. It uses a lot of water, pesticides, and fertilizers. The fertilizers used for cotton alone are very carbon intensive. 1 ton of nitrogenous fertilizer produces 7 tons of carbon dioxide. Now let's move on to more exceedingly pressing issues, which is the industry of fishing. According to an article published 2020 called How Does Overfishing Make Climate Change Worse? It states that it's not just the number of fish we're taking out of the sea that's problematic, it's also the way in which we're doing it. Most people don't understand that the ocean has the top role in regulating our climate. This is why it is so important to take steps in the right direction. Industrial scale fishing equals a decrease in biodiversity. Fish and ocean ecosystems are on a decline due to the destructive techniques used in the fishing industry, such as bottom trail fishing. This technique uses heavy weighted nets in order to essentially bulldoze anything that's in its way. This method allows them to get as many fish as possible in one go. The problem with this is that in just 1 year alone, the bottom trawling industry in New Zealand destroyed over 6 million pounds of coral. I don't know if you knew, but coral forms very slowly, and it can take hundreds of years for it to form. If these coral disappear, so do the creatures that depend on this coral. We are taking too much from the ocean, and we're basically putting ourselves in a position of ecological debt. Just like financial debt, the more we dig the hole, the harder it is to get ourselves out of the situation. In another article published in 2020 called How Fish Are Being Affected by Climate Change, it states that fishermen across the states are already seeing the direct impacts of climate change from fish seeking refuge, either from habitat destruction or from warming waters. Fisheries and coastal communities that depend on fishing in order to survive are being disrupted. The ocean has been protecting us from feeling the intense effects of climate change, but we're running out of time. Soon we will see the true effects of destroying one of the only things keeping us alive. To summarize, the disruptive practices used in the fishing industry and in fast fashion have had detrimental impacts on our environment. These industries are just a few of the main contributors to the irreversible damage we have caused on our once flourishing planet. If we want to continue thriving as we currently are, we must take immediate action. Now, the real question is, are we still gonna keep denying these real issues?